Welcome to the Going Somewhere podcast, a podcast for anyone who finds themselves in the ambiguous adventure of young adulthood. A season marked by uncertainty, change, love, heartbreak, and a whole lot of big decisions. Sit down with me for some real and raw conversations with some incredible people as we dig into what it looks like to be a follower of Jesus in this beautiful yet complicated season of life. If this podcast helps you in any way, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with friends. Be sure to join the conversation on Instagram by following goingsomewhere.podcast. We're all going somewhere. We might as well go there together. Let's dive into today's episode. Hey everybody, welcome to this week's episode of the Going Somewhere podcast. Today I'm joined by my friend Jared Hineman. How are you doing, Jared?
Good. Thanks for having me. I know I made a joke to you when you texted me saying I feel like you're probably having the most average person on the podcast, but I'm happy to be here.
When a podcast is hosted by the most average person, it's impossible. So I'm
average squared or something. I don't know what that equals.
Dude, I've been pumped. So when I made my list of people, you were actually one of the first people I had, because one of the things I love about what I'm trying to do is one of the things I love about the things I do. No, one of the things that this podcast I really intended it for was, I think there's so many people in my life that have voices that I want to have heard because they've made an impact on my life, and that's you. I think
it means a lot.
I think back to one moment we met in my office when I was working in college ministry.
Yep.
And I must have complained about my chair and didn't talk about it. You came back 30 minutes later and you called me and you had a chair that you bought from Costco and you brought it to my office.
It was a floor model though. So,
Hey, that's even better. I got the floor model. But that's just you. You are generous and you just are thoughtful. And I just love that about you. So
yeah,
I'm so pumped that you're here.
I appreciate it. Yeah. It's fun to be here. You're somebody that's obviously fed into my life all throughout college. There's so much that you learn about yourself during the college years, and your role in college ministry played a lot into me. So I appreciate it.
Oh, well, that's an honor. So I'm pumped about this, but for those of you that don't know who Jared is, who's Jared? Can you give us a little background?
Oh man, what I do for work?
Yeah, what are you doing now?
Yeah,
what do you do now? Are you married?
Yeah. So probably most importantly, what I should say is I'm married.
Yeah.
So I got married in October. It's been an awesome journey. It's been super interesting learning how to live with somebody of a different sex, obviously,
Absolutely.
and learning how to do things that are expected. So it's been an awesome journey so far. We have a dog named Hobbs that's 4 years old. So
what kind of dog?
Springer Doodle. So
he's the cutest thing
yeah,
ever.
he's been pretty great. He's made having a dog easy, so it'll be difficult to probably get another dog in the future just because he's set the bar a little too high. So
come on, Hobbs.
Yeah, and I work from home, so I work with my dog a lot. And so I work for a tech-based company. We operate in Oregon, North Dakota, New York, Michigan, and some other places as well. And what we do is we do on-demand home cleanings for people. So we're software technology-based, and so a big thing that we hit the market with is finding a way to turn over vacation rentals in between guests is kind of what we built this for. And it's now progressed to all sorts of other things, which is super exciting. And I feel kind of like an imposter to be sitting in the role that I am, but it's really fun to be here. So.
You were a part of starting that from the scratch, which is really cool.
Yeah. So we founded the company over 4 years ago now when I was in college. And it's been super humbling to be part of it. I think that a big life lesson for me along the way is that it takes longer than you think. And the whole process of, from where I thought we were going to be today was a lot further than we are, but that's just kind of part of a process. And it's a cool experience. So
I can only imagine.
Yeah.
I'm excited to talk more about that. And obviously you're also involved with a nonprofit too, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. So I'm part of an organization called One More One Less Ministry. And really what we exist to do is to help support people that are in the process of adopting. And we also give out financial grants. And so it's a really unique nonprofit where what we do is people donate to us, and 100% donations go to grants to families that are adopting. Currently, we give out $3,000 to anyone that is in the process of adopting. And that's something that will hopefully go up over time to help just, help with some of the barriers in the process of adopting. A lot of the stories we hear are kind of that the grant is an answer to a lot of people's prayers along the way. And as I'm sure you know and you've heard from people in your life, it's a really lonely and just kind of a very interesting journey that you trust God on. And so for us to be able to come in and support people is it's awesome. It's probably my favorite thing I get to do, actually. So it's super cool.
That's amazing. I think, in observing you, and just getting to know you, I think I think back to one of the conversations that we had in my office. It might have been the chair day. It might have been the day that you delivered my new chair, but you were just talking about like the needs that you were seeing in the community. Specifically, we were talking about like the homeless community, and it was just like that was how your brain, that's how your heart was just like leaping, what it was leaping towards. So you've just always been somebody that finds the need and meets it. And I just want to ask, like, what are the events in your life or like the things that as you were growing up that kind of led you to that? Or is it just like just DNA?
I don't know. I don't know exactly what it is. Again, I see myself as a very much just normal person, and that's where I live. I think that for me, there's a sermon I heard that I was at, actually. And, the pastor talked a lot about how people came into his office on the off weeks when he wasn't preaching. And basically we're just saying like, hey, there's a lot of homeless people on the streets here in Texas. And we're just basically saying like, what is the church doing about it? And, he kind of looked up and said, we're all the church. What are you doing about it? And so for me, I think there's a lot of, I think that's really powerful. I think that it's important for everybody, no matter where they're at, they can play an impact. And Dave talked about this actually last week. But it comes down to, whether you give an hour or you give more, we all have something to give to something that matters. And so I think we're all passionate about something, and it's important to understand what that is and pursue it.
Right. And in the entrepreneurial lane, did you ever like see yourself just like with a 9-to-5 job? Like what was, I asked Jake when Jake was on the podcast, like when you were 14 years old, what were you thinking about? Like, what was your dream jobs?
Yeah. So I was probably kind of more of an adrenaline junkie. And so I lived for like snowboarding, biking, like that sort of stuff. And so for me, the 9-to-5, I wasn't opposed to, but I was very much into just the excitement of what else can I do? And so I think I've always been looking for something different. When I started college, I was, kind of like, well, I don't know, I'll do something engineering. That seems like something that people would do. And so I kind of started thinking about engineering. And within a semester, I was like, I don't like this. And so I kind of came down to, I'd have been a CNA for a while. And I was like, well, I'll do nursing. That seems like a great option. There's good jobs and room for growth, which is ironic because my wife is a nurse and she's becoming a nurse anesthetist, which is what I was like, oh, maybe I could do that someday. And so it's funny seeing what she's going through.
If you can't be it, just marry it.
Yeah, just marry. That's how it works. Yeah, marry up. So, no, and so it's just interesting because, that's kind of a path that I had seen as, there's a lot of room for growth. And after seeing what nurses do, bless their heart, it's not me. And so I love helping people. I love supporting people, but I don't think that's where my strengths are at in that certain industry.
Right.
And my parents, my family, they're all kind of healthcare to some degree. And so, I suppose like a lot of kids going to college, they see their parents and they think, well, maybe I should do what they do. And, I had to go through that process of, no, this is not for me. And then it came to, well, business seems like a good option. And so I majored in business and throughout that found the path to starting something that could, hopefully fulfill me a little bit and, pay the bills and give me a job in the future, which is where we're at now.
Which is amazing.
Yeah.
Did you ever feel, when you were kind of teetering that, like, did you ever feel like there was pressure from maybe not necessarily your parents, but like just people or just culture, society, like, hey, there's this lane that you should be on.
Yeah.
Get back on,
Yeah. I think I feel that some days where like my job's harder than some other people's. And I'm like, why do I do this? There's no stability, right? Like there's so many unknowns, COVID, this stuff going on in Ukraine. There's so much things that I feel a little bit different than maybe somebody that worked a normal 9-to-5. And it had the security. And so I definitely feel that where it's kind of, I think I should support my wife and I want her to be able to do whatever she wants to do. And so I feel the pressure of like, how do I get to this place where Abby doesn't feel like she needs to work all the time and support me? which we're good now, but it's like, what does the future hold? So I definitely feel that when it comes to what society says, going through a process of, changing majors. Of course, a lot of college kids do that.
Right.
It's normal, but it kind of sucks. Like you feel kind of like a little bit of failure. And so it is an interesting process to go through it.
For sure. Was there ever, like, what were the first business ideas? Were there any business ideas that have not,
Oh man.
Like what were some of like the big ones that you could actually talk about because you don't have them in your back
There's
pocket?
so many things. Yeah. There's and they're not all bad ideas either. Invention ideas that we've always thought about. It's always got to be like something that has a path to scale though, for me to want to do it. And so like,
you're not like you weren't the type of like business entrepreneur dreamer that was just like, all right, I'm going to, put a person or a dog on the moon.
No, it has to be like something that, like I don't want to be the Pride of Dakota show. Like it's an amazing place to be. And Dots is proving me wrong right now because they sold for all this money.
Yeah.
But like something like that.
That was insane, by the way.
That was insane. Yeah. But like something like that where it's like a lot of those places, they work so many hours and they never get to break away from it. And so for me, it's been something that can actually become bigger than myself. And now we have a team and all the stuff behind us. Again, I feel like I'm an imposter. I shouldn't be here in the role that I am. But it's super exciting because it's kind of paying off what we want to be. But when we talk about just ideas we've had, it's always got to be something that has impact, something that's like bigger than what Jared needs at this time. And it's got to be something that can, they can work towards something and not just get to the end and be like, now what?
Right.
So yeah.
That's cool though. And, when you guys started to pursue WeClean, like I think the entrepreneurial path is not like as rainbows and butterflies as people think it is. Like not. It's a grind. But what was that process? Like maybe there's somebody that's working on something or dreaming up something. Like what was that process like? Not with all the details, but just kind of the summary of it.
Yeah, I think a big part is that everybody has good ideas, and it's people that actually learn to pursue them. And so it's going to be hard. And there's a lot of days where you wake up and you're like, why am I doing this? And you think about that. And you kind of have to like, to some degree, eat those emotions and just keep moving forward. And so I think it's as simple as like your left foot in front of your right foot and keep figuring it out. I kind of believe in like a yes, no. So like keep going until you get a no. So, if you want to start something, pursue it. And if you, meet people along the way, talk to people and network, do all those things you have to do to find success in that. But you also have to, keep working. You have to work hard. And I think that's something that like with God, that as long as I know I feel him with me and feel I'm supposed to be doing something, I can work hard. It's when you don't feel him or when you're unsure if you're on the right path where it gets really difficult.
What do you feel like you do to, because I think those feelings can be fleeting. I think there are times where you're in the center, you're in the sweet spot of like the will of God. But maybe it's hard at the moment and maybe it feels like, we could always overthink and over spiritualize of like, okay, God doesn't want me here because it's hard right now. But what are the things that you do to just trust and work through that with God?
I think the cool thing about our current company is wherever we end up, whether we end up a big success or we fail at some point, I can very confidently say that, me, my co-founders that I've worked with have been very open-handed. Every step along the way, we've prayed about it and just been very clear, like if it's not right, like let's not have it happen. But if it is, like I know God will find a way. And, that's where as we go into these hard places that we're always in hard places, but, we've experienced things that I didn't know we were going to experience. But we got here because we were open-handed. And so for me, I understand that even if we were to fail at some point, I know that we were supposed to be here because I didn't force my way through some doors to get here. That God did really provide a way. Now there's hard work though. So that's the one thing that people need to understand is that it's still really difficult and it's still emotionally draining. And some days, a lot of days you don't want to wake up and go to work because it's brutal. Right. But I knew that God is with us. And so hard things were a little less hard because of that.
For sure. I think it was Mark Batterson I heard say like, pray as if it depends on God, work as it depends on you. Like just give everything to it. Yet like you're saying open-handed. Like what does that mean to you? Like to be open-handed with a business or with anything in our life? Yeah,
I think surrender is probably a big piece of it. I think it's knowing that like no matter what happens next, that your identity is with God. And so, we all deal with fear and trying to
Yeah, yeah.
understand how to like keep fear in a place that it should be. And so, it comes down to, I think the more you're in tune with God, and obviously we go through different seasons where we feel God more than others, but just inviting Holy Spirit into everything is obviously very important. And I think that a lot of the decision making, a lot of the things that we feel by inviting God into it, I do
Right.
think it helps out a lot.
I the idea of like holistic discipleship, or like
Yep.
just holistic Christianity, of it's not just a Sunday worship thing, or
Yep.
these few key points in my day in the morning, or
Yep.
like when our whole life is that,
Yep.
it funnels into and it impacts everything in our life. And I've definitely seen that in your endeavors, both business and nonprofit and life, marriage, like everything. And I think that's always been something that just from afar, like I've seen in you,
Yep.
that like it really is in you. And you talked about that, like when my identity is in God, like
Yep.
that's important. How has that, I think there's always a temptation to put our identity in what we do. I
Yep.
think when we introduce ourselves,
Yep.
one of the first questions we
Yep.
ask is, hey, what do you do for a living?
Yep.
Like how do you keep your identity fixed in Christ?
Yeah, I think, it's one of those things where for me, I know I'm nothing without God. I think that I see the things in my life. It's just like God is here. God has like made a lot of these things happen, or help provide a way, open doors for such things. And so
Right.
for me, it's like the glory isn't for me. And I just think about like, win or fail, like we did it with God, whatever that is in life. And so, it is important to keep God center. In marriage, it's obviously difficult as well, and we're navigating that. And I think marriage is probably the most humbling experience of my life, I'm sure. And it's just learning how to, we're all selfish, and learning how to understand that God needs to stay the center.
Yeah, absolutely. That's
So,
good.
yeah.
I feel like I've heard of marriage and even having children as like a tool for God to refine us. Like
Yeah.
how you're deep into it,
Yeah.
3 months,
Yeah,
or
3 months
4
in,
months
3
into
months, yeah,
marriage.
yeah.
And I'm sure you could just make this podcast about like, I'm going to tell you how to be married today.
I could give a lot of advice, but
Yeah.
no.
But what are
No.
maybe some of the things that you've learned in marriage so far in that regard?
There's like obviously the basic ones of, I think that like the parts of me that were selfish come out a little bit, and you start to see what that is. Just navigating, being around somebody more often than you normally have when you're growing up or in the past. In that way, it's just interesting. Our marriage is a little bit different at this time because Abby's in Bismarck so much, and with her residency for
Right.
For nurse anesthesia, so she's gone a little bit. So I don't think we're kind of still a little bit in the honeymoon phase, because it's been drug out a little bit longer than most because we don't see each other every single day. So there's parts that we're like, but we're learning through it, and so I think just the reality is that we're both committed to figuring it out and working with each other. And so I'm not really concerned about the hard times, just because I know what we're committed to, which is God and each other. And so,
Right.
through the hard times, it's like we can go through hard times because we know God is there. And so, we're excited. It's super fun.
That's awesome. And I feel like when you have a kind of dreamer tendency, or,
Yep.
Even just that spirit of building something,
Yep.
I think sometimes it's tempting to funnel that to the career ambitions.
Yep.
How do you do that, like in marriage? Like, I think that's one of the challenges, is funneling that same ambition and that same mentality towards our spouse, or towards our
Yep.
family, or towards the people that are closest to us.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. It's just kind of like, how do you, you want to dream, you want to have them in your dreams now too. And that's the other thing that's interesting is, I've been able to dream alone for the most part my whole life. And now it's like you're dreaming of a person. And so, we're learning how to navigate that, and, what is our life going to look like? And, it's just super exciting. Life's a lot more fun with someone with you. So
For sure. Is Abby like a dreamer by nature or not?
She's pretty realistic, I'd say. She's very disciplined, and so, and I wouldn't say I lack discipline, but she's definitely more disciplined than me, and so it is interesting just like navigating that. But Yeah, I mean, I say she's a dreamer, but not anything outside the ordinary, not where I'm at probably, I suppose.
Well, and that's right. And like, I think that's something that people can maybe misinterpret is
Yeah.
like dreamers aren't good and
Yeah.
everybody else is bad. Like
Yeah.
we're all, it's our mix of like who God's made
Yeah.
us to be.
Yeah.
And I think like that's Taylor and myself,
Yeah.
you know, I have, you know, notebooks of ideas and
Yeah.
Taylor's like, I just want to like really love my kids.
Yep.
I want to have my 2 days a week where I work
Yep.
outside the home and like really
Yep.
own that and bless my employer.
Yep.
You know, and it's just, that's her sweet spot. Like that's who she's made to be too.
Yeah, and I feel like, you know, even me in college, when I was kind of going through figuring out what is my life going to look like, I remember just being like, most importantly, I want to be a good dad someday. And I think that like, you know, if I were to say my biggest dream, that is probably my biggest dream, is to be like a present dad, be someone that's actually there for my kids. And, you know, I had a good dad growing up, and it's something where I want to be able to, you know, be a good father figure. And so I'd say like, if I were to sit down and say like, what's my biggest dream? Like, what would be the biggest success if I were to define success in life? It's probably going to be being a good dad. And so that's a big dream of mine too.
That's awesome.
So
I think when you can have that as a mentality throughout every season of life, like I think that's a beautiful thing. Cause that's always been one of my things too. Like for some reason I was kind of the weird, maybe teenager that was like, I can't wait to be a dad.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Yep.
not in like the next 4 years,
but at some point
when that day comes, like when I was even in college, some of the guys, one in particular, Nate Liedall, who was, you know, 6 years ahead of me or whatever, he started having kids, his daughter Amaya. Like I get to be around her, and it was just like I would see Nate and Amaya, and I was like, oh my goodness. And now I have Kinsley, and I have these flashbacks of like watching him, and it's so fun. And it doesn't mean that now like I'm going to abandon one for the other. It's I want this to all work together in a healthy way. And that's the challenge sometimes, but because we're limited in time. But
feels like juggling probably a little bit.
Yeah, it can. It can, but it's not chainsaws. Like if a ball drops, you just pick it back up.
You pick it up, figure it out,
and you keep going. Like
you still have both your hands and your fingers, and
yeah. I think that's a great way to look at like balancing ambitions in life when it comes to family and career. It's literally like juggling, but they're really bouncy balls that come right back. And even if they go into a corner of the room, just go get it and keep juggling. Like keep doing it, and then maybe there's a time where you do need to put a ball in your pocket and focus on the other ones.
Know which ones are most important and prioritize them. Yeah, and that's where like I feel like, you know, I would, you know, if there is some reason where Abby was like, I think that you have to quit what you're doing because it's too demanding or whatever that was, you know, I would do that obviously for the core of what matters to me, which is obviously my family and God. And so for me, it's just always being in a place of like knowing what actually matters in life. So
for sure. And when I was in New Jersey, you know, we were just there for 2 years, and it was like the perfect storm because we moved out there and we're just getting acclimated with our community, with our team, with our church. And then COVID happened shortly after. And so
I remember talking to you a few times out there too.
It was just different. Like we had a blast and we loved the people we met, and still keep in touch with quite a few of them. But the one thing was, it was really hard for my wife. Like Taylor had a harder time. For me, I've talked about it in different settings, but like for me, it was almost like a break, not a break, but just I had all this free time in my life that I hadn't had in years. And so God really was doing some things, you know, in me, like reflecting and stuff, where for Taylor it was, her life was still the kids. Her life didn't really change because like the kids still needed to be fed. They still needed to, except we were basically trapped in our home and we couldn't do anything. And people that we knew
COVID hit when you were there.
Yeah. I knew it was East Coast. So it was just even a different level. And it was all of these things that we had these conversations of, you know, at what point, and I was like, I need to make a decision if I'm truly going to live by core values and priorities. Like there may be a day where I make a decision to do something for our family, even if it costs me something in my career. And thank God, like it's all worked together and I was able to keep my job, move back. Couldn't have been better for us. But like, I think that is a point where if we don't think of it years in advance, when it comes, I don't think we always make the right decisions in those moments.
Yeah, I 100% agree. It's I mean, life is just like, it's it's never like expectations are kind of something you learn not to have. It's just kind of like life's gonna be messy, and you just have to like trust God and know God has your best will. And I think that the reality is that it's never gonna go exactly as you hope. Things will take longer, but the reality is that like the story God's writing is so much better than you could write yourself, even though you think. And that's easy to say, but obviously as Christian, that's like a Christian-y thing to say. But I think we've all seen it in our life where it's a reality. You kind of have to hold on to that.
For sure. I mean, I just think of like the story of Joseph, like in the Bible, like his story was really messed up, yet he trusted God and God wrote the perfect ending, the perfect story. And I think we can all do that in our lives as well. And I think, you had mentioned just for being an entrepreneur, like you guys maybe aren't where you thought you would be at this time. That doesn't mean that you guys are failing by any means. You guys are doing awesome. But if you were just to stick to the plan that you guys drew up, because I'm sure you had some model of like a business plan, and what's that like when you see that and it's not what you thought, like how do you adapt? How do you move forward?
Yeah, I think it's probably like a parallel to life as well, where it's like, you think about what it's going to look like and how perfect will be the fairy tale, whether it's a business or life, whatever that is. And, you kind of try to stick to the script, and eventually stuff just won't quite work as you might think. And the reality is it's probably my favorite saying, because it kind of gets you out of having to like give some wise answer, but it's like, you don't know what you don't know. And so as life goes on, things happen, and you just kind of like make do with it. And I think with our business, it's the same thing where, the model that we had 4 years ago wasn't going to be the, organization that we are today. But you have to start somewhere and keep moving forward. And now we're, a multi-million-dollar organization that's growing. And it's something that, we're super happy that we just continued moving forward with, instead of quitting when the first thing didn't work. And so I suppose try again. Try
again. No, that's so good though. Like it does translate to life, when it comes to when things don't go as planned, you don't scrap the plan.
No.
You just write it in pencil in the first place, and don't chalk it up as failure,
And don't feel sorry for yourself either. I mean, we're all going to go through some sort of level of disappointment. And so it's like, you just can't get stuck in this place of poor me and just kind of, pick yourself up and be like, maybe I was off by somewhere. Maybe something was not right. And now it's time to figure out what I need to do to make it right.
Right. One of the stories I remember you telling me was, I don't know if it was WeClean or if it was a different business idea, but you sent a pitch to Rob Dyrdek.
Yeah.
And I need you to tell me that story.
Yeah. So it was this company that we're currently with. And, I think that's like our more naive days. Now we've got way better investors that actually know what's going on. But he was appealing because he's kind of like that celebrity guy you look up to. And who doesn't love a fantasy factory and all the foam pit and all the stuff that us guys would be
Robin
super
Big.
excited about. Yeah. And so we as an Amos Coble is one of my co-founders. And so we basically sent him over the course of a week, like 5 different things. Started off with, I think we sent him coffee and biscuits or something, or some sort of muffin to his office in Beverly Hills, with a note, not saying who we were, but just basically saying like, expect lunch tomorrow, it's on us. And then we sent him lunch the next day, not saying who we were, but say, I can't remember the exact order, but basically saying like, there's something else coming tomorrow. And then I think we sent him like 1 million bouncy balls or something, or 10,000 bouncy balls, saying like, what we're about to show you is going to be bouncing off a wall, or something, like some sort of like, we have a script for it. And then we sent him, the last day we sent him a masseuse to his office to give everybody in his office a massage. Just to try to get attention. And at that time, we basically wrote down who we were. And I guess like for people that don't know about business like ours, you raise capital, so you kind of sell a portion of a business for X amount of dollars to then grow the business. Right. And so we were fundraising however much money, and we wanted to get his attention because we knew if we just went through the front door, it wouldn't work. And I suppose that's kind of like a life model, is using the back door for us, finding a way to get around what most people would assume is the right way in. To get the attention of the people we want to know. And so we sent him a masseuse the last day with our information. He gave us a call right away, just laughing. And he was making a comment about, you sent me a male masseuse. What's up with that? Yeah. And just was, joking around, and was super excited about what we were doing. And It led to conversation where he's obviously excited about what we're doing. He didn't end up investing because it wasn't part of his model of what he invests in. But we still he's somebody that has actually kept up with us a little bit and is, curious about what's going on. So, I think just in life, it's all about, finding the way to get attention to people or whatever that is that you need, and not always going the normal way that people tell you to go.
I think about that story all the time.
Yeah.
I just think there's things that a lot of people will stop. We won't do it. Like Rob Dyrdek, he won't, he won't do this. Or we'd say, well, I'll just DM him, and just see what happens.
Yep.
But I think that creativity in what can we do to not only just get our idea in front of him, but show him a little bit about who we are through that.
Yep.
And I think that in business, that's one of the coolest things that I've heard a company doing. And I'm sure those things happen, but I think just that creative idea, even just translating into our life of what's a way that I can get the attention of the people around me with love, with caring for them. If there's these needs in our community and these needs in our family, I don't have to just go through the conventional front door. Like you said, there's a back door that can meet this need in a way that will take them by surprise, and it'll be so much more beneficial, which I love.
Yeah, and that even goes to volunteering at your church. There's so many different ways you can do it that might not look or appeal of a way that you assume they would, and making a difference in the world. It doesn't always take just your time or just your money. There's so many ways to make impact. And I think that on that is it's important to think about your legacy and think about what are you going to stand for over the course of your life. And so, not living normally is probably a big part of my life, which is probably will drive Abby crazy, but we'll see.
We'll see. It'll keep her on her toes.
Keep her on her toes, yeah.
The kids will come and they'll be just like you, and then she's just getting surrounded by this
all these
tribe of
weird people.
Yeah, I wouldn't go that far, but so one less nonprofit.
Yeah,
there maybe not be a lot of nonprofits that are in that arena, in the adoption arena, that had a leader that was single. Not married, no kid. Can you tell me how you got involved in that, and then just what's kind of been the driving factor for building that?
Yeah, so One More, One Less was founded in 2012 by, it was my parents' church in Bismarck. And so it was part of the church, and you basically had to donate to the church and say, I wanted to go to this thing, which is One More, One Less. And so it was founded initially by these people that were adopting, and we're like, well, this is expensive, we should kind of fundraise and create a platform for that. And so that's what they did, and they built an amazing thing, which I was basically able to help take to the next level a little bit. It ran for I think 6-7 years, and then 3 years ago I was told by my parents that it was being shut down, and I was kind of like, man, that's a bummer. That's too bad it shut down. That's kind of my initial mentality. And then I think God was kind of like, well, if you're not going to do something, who's going to do something? Not saying that I'm some amazing person, but saying that if not you, then who? Who am I to assume that nobody's going to do anything or that somebody will step up? And so that's when I reached out to the person as a president of the board and just said, it's super big bummer that you guys are shutting down. I'd love to hear more about it and see if there's anything I can do. At this time, I had been running our company for a year or so and felt like I had learned a lot about just kind of growing a business to some degree. And how to make it so it could run itself a little bit better. And so I met with the person that started it, the president of it, and just basically agreed to take it on, and he would be on the board for a year to help hand off the process to me. And it had already been shut down for a couple months, and then we restarted it. So at that time, basically I took it over and just rebuilt the board, restructured, rebranded, and just made it more modern and made it so it was less depending on a singular church, but more of a statewide organization. And so we brought it as its own nonprofit, made it so that people, at any church would feel fine giving to it, because it's not like they're cheating on the church by giving to a different church, but they're kind of giving to a nonprofit. And so, which we found that people didn't like donating to it from other churches because it felt weird to donate to the church that wasn't theirs.
Right.
Just weird stuff that I didn't know existed, but it did.
For sure.
And so we brought it as its own nonprofit. And just relaunched it on Mother's Day, which was super awesome because obviously that's a big thing that we stand for. A big core thing behind it for me is my dad is adopted, and we've since met his aunt and uncle and become really close with him, which is super exciting. They've, brought a lot of healing to our family. I feel like
for
through
sure.
that. But, adoption is a beautiful thing if done correctly. And so to be able to give back in a way, I'm so thankful that my dad's mom chose to, give him up for adoption rather than the alternative that people can do in this world. We wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for what she chose to do.
Yeah.
And so for us, it's how can we support the adoption process, and this organization has been a super big part of our family. And so taking it on and bringing it to where it's at today is super awesome. So yeah.
I love that. And, my nephew
Yep.
is adopted, and, he's so special to our
Yep.
family, and like the adoption process and adoption is so beautiful. And I think it's until you maybe know somebody that goes through that process that you have no idea
Yep.
how difficult that process is.
And we helped your brother out during the process too, which is super awesome.
Yeah.
To be able to be part of that.
But it's not just like all right, I'm going to fill out this paper and, a month later, like it takes years. It takes a lot of money. And so what have maybe been some of the experiences in just helping these families and helping people become a family, which I think is, people adopt for many reasons. And, one of them being infertility, like being unable to conceive a child and the pain that comes with that. And so what's that kind of experience been like for you?
Yeah, it's super, obviously I'm not necessarily the best person to talk about all these things, and I'm sure future people you bring on will be better to talk about adoption. But for my experience, it's been a lot of learning of what people actually go through during the adoption process. I think that when I grew up hearing about adoption, I was like, oh, like you said, you fill out some paperwork. It costs a lot of money. That sucks, but it costs a lot of money. And then, placement happens at some point and you're all of a sudden a family. And I think that what I've learned and what we've seen is, people are on the wait list for years, and there's all this unknown, and families that get grants from us, you check back in, we pray with them. We have a prayer team that works with them. And shout out to Alyssa Tubner. She's been a huge process for, working on those things.
Yeah.
And it's something where, these people they're lonely. It's just a kind of a lonely process that not a lot of people can relate in. And it's hard for them to probably articulate to someone else like me how they actually feel, because how can I relate to something that they're feeling when that's outside something I've ever felt before. And so it's just it's a crazy process. There's so much more to it than people realize.
Right. I don't think a lot of people know about, your guys' nonprofit and others that work in that arena. And I think that's something that all of us can take some sort of step to dive into that a little bit more. Like, I think in these young adult years, there's so many things that individuals will face. Not everybody will face them, but some will. But somebody in our life will probably.
For sure. Yep.
And to be able to just even be aware of things that are happening and support that people can have. I know another example is what Ashley and Ryan Ham and their team with Dear NICU Mama does. Like, maybe it's a smaller population of people that will have a child in the NICU. Yep. But the impact that they can make is so significant. And I think that's so cool for you to step into that, not because you had some sort of crisis in your life and a wake up a call of like, oh my goodness. Like, of course you have your own story with your dad, but you saw a need and you just jumped at it. Like, if not me, who? And, I think that's just a really beautiful way to live your life, And
it's just like, I mean, one more, one less is amazing. And to be able to build the team we have to do what we've done, and help take care of his families. We're staying with what we're good at. We're not trying to branch out and do a whole lot more right now, just because we're filling the need that we see and that we're capable of fulfilling well. And whatever God calls us to, I could see him calling us to something bigger, something more. At this time, we're just staying in our niche, which is really going to be, the prayer support, that outreach of connecting people if somebody has adopted, if they want to get connected with someone, and then the grants as well to people that are in process of adopting. And so, it's just, I think that it's a process that people need to understand has to happen. It's a biblical thing, obviously, to be fostering, to be taking care of these families and building families. And what it stands for, what we stand for, is one more family, one less adoptable child. That's the one more, one less. And, when I took it back on, the thing that was on my heart is, if we just help one more family, if we just help that one more person, that will be success. That's how I define success. And it's turned into so much more, which has been awesome.
For sure. It's an example to people that maybe are seeking out adoption, maybe working towards that, or whatever reason or whatever. Even if maybe your organization isn't the organization that they need, maybe that's not the stage they're in. That's not you guys, what you offer maybe doesn't meet that need. But I think it shows that there's people, there's support, there's a community around that. And I hope that this podcast can be somewhere that people can find a home in. Hey, me too. Like, I have a story that somebody else can share notes from, that we can do this together. So no, I just appreciate what you're doing with that. And, I think it's making a bigger impact than you even know. So
yeah. And I mean, and like from an internal side of things, like it comes back to legacy, right? Like, I don't think we're here to serve ourselves. I don't think we're on this planet to, make Steven or Jared feel really good all the time. It's kind of like, what are our strengths and how can we push God's kingdom forward? And so, One More and Less is that. And it's probably the most life-giving thing I get to do. Writing those checks and making those phone calls to let them know they're getting approved for the grant is, I would trade a lot to be able to do that all the time. It's a blessing to be able to do that. So, super thankful that I got put in the role that I am. Again, I'm probably, you're right. Like, I was a single guy that took it over, and it's just funny how God works.
For sure. So one of the questions I like to ask, what is a piece of advice?
The dreaded question.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
What's a piece of advice that you would give 18 to 20-year-old Jared?
Yeah. I think, for me, it's a lot of like, don't take yourself too seriously. And also enjoy the process. Don't be super forced to get to the destination. I've lived a lot of my life trying to, I can't wait till I get married, or once I get married, then I'll be happy. Or once I have X amount of dollars in my bank account, then I'll be happy. And then you get there and you realize, marriage has been great. But once you get there, you realize that like, that's not actually the way to live life. And so, learning just to enjoy the process, and just trust God along the way is super important.
That's awesome. That's advice that every 18 to 20-year-old should get. So thank you for that.
Especially me though. I definitely dealt with that. So
no, that's awesome. And I think, some of the things that you enjoy in life, like snowboarding and wakeboarding, wake surfing, like you are an adventurous person, so I think it's easy to see where that can come from to hit the line or to do the thing that, in snowboarding, whatever the case is, like, you hit the pinnacle or you hit the peak, but it's the process. That's sweet.
Yeah. So thanks for having me. This is awesome.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you taking some time to come and join me. This has been a lot of fun. And I know if you're watching this, or if you're listening to this, there's probably something that you can take away from it, from Jared's story, and just meeting needs and everything. So I just appreciate not only what you do and just being on this, but who you are, as a person, as a friend. Like, I look up to you a lot, and I'm so grateful that you got to be one of the guests on the podcast.
Yeah, I'm thankful to be here, thankful to have you in my life, and excited to be at Northview with you and being able to, build a life here with you guys. So
dude,
it's awesome.
Appreciate you. Thanks again. Thanks again for listening. And I encourage you to subscribe wherever you listen or watch this. And do the other things that help more people see this. Share it, do the reviews, all that stuff. It helps a lot. So thanks again. We'll see you next time. Thanks for listening to today's episode, and thanks for sticking around for a little conversation after the conversation. I was so challenged by my conversation with Jared, and there's so many things that he said that really impacted me, but also just the person that he is. He is one of the most genuine and authentic people, and I love this about Jared is that he is going to be wherever there is a need, that whether it's through his company, just trying to meet a practical need in people's lives, or his nonprofit, meeting a need for families that are seeking adoption. He's somebody that rallies to the point where there's a need and he does something about it. That's my takeaway for today is, what are the needs around me and how can I meet them? Maybe it's my family, or maybe it's with my coworkers and my work that I do, or maybe it's in a different avenue altogether. But what can I do to meet the needs of those around me? I think all of us can have some sort of response to this conversation. And that's the part of this conversation that is the ongoing aspect of this. I don't want this to be a podcast where we just talk for a while and you listen to it while you drive and then you just go on with your life, but that something would change, that something would take place, that you would do something, take action on these conversations. So what is that for you today? I would love to hear about it over on Instagram at goingsomewhere.podcast. I desire our Instagram page to be a place that we can actually have conversations and build on the conversations that we're having in order to build a life during this season of young adulthood that we can truly follow Jesus closer. So that's the invitation. Come and check it out. Make sure that you subscribe to the podcast if you haven't yet. Leave a rating. I know that helps more people listen to this. And so if it's impacted you, leave a rating, subscribe so that more people can hear about it. But finally, this podcast is a resource of Northview Church. And so if you are ever in the Fargo-Moorhead area, I'd love to invite you to check out Northview, sit down with me, but also you can find us online at northview.life. I appreciate all of you, and I can't wait for next week's episode. It's going to be an awesome one, so come back for that. Have a great day.